The latest police brutality event has transpired. This is the tragic death of Tyre Nichols. And I watched the video of it. It's pretty bad. I am appalled by what I saw. And I decided I'm going to spend a few videos on it. I've been talking about the Jason Klopfer case quite a bit, and I'm going to still cover that. But this is pretty wretched. Which one is the worst? Well, it's kind of hard to say, but it doesn't matter. What happened to Tyre Nichols is abhorrent. So I want to kind of cast this into the dumb argument series. And I have this dumb argument series for Kyle Rittenhouse, right? These are dumb arguments made by people who don't understand what happened with Kyle. And I created a whole series of videos about these dumb arguments. And I ended up with about 85 of them, believe it or not. I'm going to go ahead and do the same kind of thing for Tyre Nichols. So what's the dumb argument that we're going to cover today? Well, the fact that all 5 police officers were black has somewhat embarrassed the Black Lives Matter movement. They were so hoping that the officers were white, but it didn't work out that way. But that's okay. They have formulated a plan to somehow turn this thing around and still blame white people. So here we go. We're going to talk about one of these arguments here, and that is, even though the officers were black, this was still white supremacy at work. Hello out there. I am trying to get through.
With his powerful brainwaves cradled in the warmth of reasoning, it's time for Johnny Walker Dread to straighten you out on a thing or two. Emanating all the way from exciting Las Vegas, Oklahoma, it's the Johnny Walker Dread Show.
Now I know what you're thinking. Oh, come on there, Johnny Walker Dread. Nobody is stupid enough to say that this is an example of white supremacy, but oh, you'd be so dead wrong, because Van Jones has stepped into the arena here. The title says it all. The police who killed Tyre Nichols were black, but they might still have been driven by racism. Okay, so Van Jones, he should make my local lawyers list sometime, although he won't make it for this one because this is just purely opinion. And although his opinion is half-baked, he's not making a lot of factual mistakes, so darn it. But maybe in the future. He's been known to shoot his mouth off a lot. He's bound to make my series sooner or later. Okay, so I'm going to skip on down here. It says, by all accounts, Nichols was a good guy, and I don't doubt it. A 145-pound skateboarder, an Instagram photographer, a Starbucks aficionado. Doesn't sound like he had a lot going on, but there's no crime in that. Learning that your child's life was senselessly stolen from him is every black parent's nightmare. You know, gee, Van, I kind of think that white parents kind of fear the same thing. But, surprisingly to many, the 5 officers charged with viciously beating him were also black. This is going to create a problem for people like Van Jones, who basically blames white people for everything. Well, guess what? He's going to blame them for this one as well. Let's read on. How do we explain Nichols' horrific killing, allegedly at the hands of police who looked like him? From the King beating to the murder nearly 3 years ago of George Floyd, American society has often focused on the race of the officers, so often white, and so often non-white. Let's go ahead and leave that part out. This isn't a problem that just affects white police officers. In fact, I think that black police officers and Hispanic police officers are in on this game as much as anybody. But the narrative, white cop kills unarmed black man, should never have been the sole lens through which we attempted to understand police abuse and misconduct. Oh, it is every time that it's a white officer. That's exactly what you do, Van. Now that it wasn't, now we have to change and say, well, now we shouldn't just examine this from this lens of the race of the police officer. Oh, really? Okay. All right, he moves on. It's time to move to a more nuanced discussion. And whenever you hear them say nuanced discussion, run. That means the lies and the ridiculous and the idiocy is about to come out. So he's got this nuanced discussion of the way police violence endangers black lives because white people never get shot by the cops.
Jason, we just want to talk to you. Come outside.
Yeah.
Show us your hands. Hands.
What did you? I'm shot. What the hell? I'm shot. He's shot. What the hell did you do? Fuck. I can't. I'm shot.
Black people are not immune to anti-black messages. Society's message that black people are inferior, unworthy, and dangerous is pervasive. Over many decades, numerous experiments have shown that these ideas can infiltrate black minds as well as white. Self-hatred is a real thing. Hey, Van Jones, tell me about it. There is no group of people out there who has this self-hatred rolling as much as white people. We hear it all the time. Black cops are often socialized in police departments that view certain neighborhoods as war zones. That's because they are war zones. These are really tough neighborhoods. Hey, Van, you want to go in there and try to convince them they're not? Go for it. They're not going to believe you. Oh, they just might give you a gun and a badge and let you go and patrol it. See how well you do. In those departments, few officers get disciplined for dishing out street justice. In certain precincts, often populated by black, brown, or low-income people. I think what he meant is black, brown, or white people. What's this low income being thrown in there along with black or brown? That's not even parallel. And why also is brown not capitalized? Don't know. When there is a tacit understanding that the rule book simply doesn't apply. And keep in mind, nothing he's saying here indicates that white people are the cause of all this. He's just assuming that you're going to make that assumption. Back in 1989, the rap group NWA, and I don't care. We don't need the rap street cred here, Van. When it comes to police violence, race does matter, but possibly not the way you think. Well, we think logically, so we'll see. At the end of the day, it is the race of the victim who is brutalized, not the race of the violent cop, that is most relevant in determining whether racial bias is a factor in police violence. Oh, gee, I don't remember you saying that too much when it was a white officer doing it. When it was a white officer doing it, all of a sudden, the race of the cop was everything. It's hard to imagine 5 cops of any color beating a white person to death under similar circumstances. Let me think here. I'm trying to imagine it. Yeah, I can imagine it. Yeah, no problem. And it's almost impossible to imagine 5 black cops giving a white arrestee the kind of beatdown that Nichols allegedly received. Well, let's see, hard to imagine, I think. Nope, I can imagine it, not a problem. It's a sad fact, but one that's old as time itself. People often oppress people who look just like them. And this is what's sad. I mean, if they oppressed people who didn't look like them, that'd be all right. But what's really sad is when they oppress people who look like them. The vast majority of human rights abuses are committed by people who look exactly like the people they are abusing. Actually, this is a pretty interesting testimonial he's given here. This is almost a confession. You're right. If you look into history, you'll find out that the vast majority of abuses are actually committed by one's own kind, and that goes back to Africa. American Indians, the Aztecs were massive slave owners, and particularly cruel. Asians treated each other pretty badly. You want to talk about how the Japanese treated Asians in World War II? Yeah. This is nothing new, and I'm glad he's admitting this. It's just that it has implications beyond what he's thinking because he's not particularly bright. I am glad that the offending officers were quickly fired and charged. Actually, they weren't. But he's doing this because he's trying to extol the virtues of C.J. Davis, the police chief. That's his aim here, and he's trying to promote her because he has to remove the sting of seeing 5 black police officers getting charged for murder. But as we will see, he's off base there. Civil rights advocates once pushed for more racial integration in police departments. And what did we say? That's not going to help. we said it at the time. You know what? Just making all of your officers black isn't going to improve the situation any. But they didn't listen. Why? Because it was really all about affirmative action and quota hiring, in hopes that more black cops would lead to less police brutality. But while racial integration is important for basic fairness and opportunity, it is not a panacea against police abuse. Gee, what kind of told you that there, Van? You're a little late to the party. We've had plenty of evidence to show that it has had almost no effect on police brutality. And in fact, if you go down the whole list, you'll find out that when it comes to black and Hispanic and female police officers, they account for a pretty large percentage of all of the what I would call questionable practices that we see in the news. Unless there is real oversight with real consequences for wrongdoing, bad actors will take advantage, lower the practical standards for everyone, and put all of us at risk. Gee, didn't we say that when we said quota hiring is a bad habit? But guess who opposed that message? People like Van Jones. Hiring cops because of their skin color or because they're male or female or now because they're lesbian or not is a really bad habit because you're not hiring them for the right reasons. And we've been saying for a long time that that's a real bad practice. All right, Black Lives Matter has also weighed in. A Black Lives Matter Global Network Foundation statement on the murder of Tyre Nichols. Dejane Parker, a board member for the Black Lives Matter Global Network Foundation, released the following statement regarding the video footage released of the brutal murder of Tyre Nichols at the hands of the Memphis Police Department that is run by a black female officer who, in my opinion, should never have been put in that position. That's for another video. Tyre should be alive today. Well, that's true. Yeah, we all agree with that. He mattered to everyone except those upholding state-sanctioned violence and a dangerous cycle of white supremacy. Tyre was overwhelmingly loved by his community, family, and friends. He's described as a mama's boy who looked forward to his mama's homemade chicken with sesame seeds. Okay, yeah, good guy, get off it. He loves skating, we get that. Experiencing sunsets, okay. Today, our community is grieving another beautiful black life stolen by state-sanctioned violence. There continues to be a consistent failure of our current public safety model to protect black lives and communities. This public safety model was founded on quota hiring, where you hired people for the wrong reasons and you stuck them out there in the community, and guess what? You get this. You hire based on merit. Does the person have the temperament to handle this job? Or do they have the right physical attributes? In other words, can they take Roscoe down if they need to? Or will they have to shoot him? That's another consideration. But when you bring in the quota hiring, you start hiring people for the wrong reasons, and you end up with people who just can't handle situations. They're either not physically strong enough or they're just lunatics. And we saw what happened. We are tired of traffic stops becoming death sentences. Well, you could do a lot to help in that regard, and you refuse to do so because you're pushing your racism deal. We deserve a system that prioritizes holistic, health-centered, community-driven approaches that will help advance true public safety. In other words, not the Scorpions. However, when it comes to C.J. Davis, the police chief, they're going to be all in favor of her. Oh, what a hero. She's such a wonderful police chief, the way that she came out and made her statements against those police officers. She set up Scorpion. She didn't set up a holistic, health-centered, community-driven approach, not with the Scorpions, and yet they're going to be all behind her. We continue to be devastated by the current system that prioritizes punishment, harm, and criminalization. And that current system is the Memphis Police Department, and it's run by C.J. Davis, a black female. And you're not going to criticize her one lick. At least I don't think they will. 5 police officers brutally beat Tyre to death. Although the media has spent a great amount of time drawing attention to the fact that the police officers are black, as if that is important. If they were all white, though, that would not be important to her at all. No. Oh, come on. Let us be clear. Oh, okay, now this is called truth by blatant assertion, right? It's truthful if I say it really firmly. Watch. All police represent the interest of capitalism and impel state-sanctioned violence. See, we kind of forgot that Black Lives Matter is a Marxist organization. And so they're coming out and slamming capitalism. This isn't about Tyre Nichols. This is about pushing communism. Anyone who works within a system that perpetuates state-sanctioned violence is complicit in upholding white supremacy. Oh my gosh. And anyone who works within a system, so basically all police officers are complicit in upholding white supremacy. All right. Assimilation into a system that is anti-black is one of the most dangerous weapons stemming from white supremacy. Again, all of the police officers that were arrested were black. And her whole message is, never mind that. Be quiet about that. That's not what's important. However, if somebody had told them originally that they were white, they would have screamed it from the mountaintops. White police officers killed Tyre Nichols. This is what happens when you don't have a consistent argument. This is intellectual dishonesty. This moment affirms what we've known all along. Reform doesn't work. Well, wait a minute. I thought this was all about police reform. Incremental progress is too slow. Diversifying a police department will not work. Okay. I don't know. No police department, no matter how diverse, can ever overcome the reality that it is a direct descendant of slave patrols. Police departments are not descendant from slave patrols. Yes, slave patrols were, I guess, kind of an early kind of police department, but that doesn't mean that every police department that followed thereafter was modeled on them, and in fact it wasn't. First police department was in Philadelphia, and in fact all of your early police departments sprung up in the North, New York City, Philadelphia, and Boston. They had nothing to do with slave patrols. But that's been their big deal. Carol Anderson has been going around making the circuits, telling everybody about this. It's total horse manure. Don't fall for it. Police will never keep our communities safe. So what will? Our call to defund the police includes ending traffic stops for minor traffic violations and removing police from traffic interactions. Well, okay, I guess you could just drive like a bat out of hell. We are in solidarity with Tyre's family as they seek accountability and uplift their demand that the city of Memphis disband a special crime unit that murdered their loved one. Oh, you mean the Scorpions, the one set up by the black female police chief? Okay. Black Lives Matter will continue to push for an abolitionist approach to public safety, which makes no sense at all, that moves us swiftly towards community-driven approaches that work. So let me go ahead and describe to you what she's saying. She's saying vigilantism. A community-driven police department is a vigilante organization. If they're not police, how are they going to arrest? Or are you just going to let people just slaughter each other? At some point, you have to have somebody come in who has the authority to detain and arrest people. If you don't, then you have to take care of justice right then and there. So, Black Lives Matter, you don't understand what this is about. You have a lot of ideas, but you haven't thought through them very clearly. Like my video, subscribe to my channel.